Hey guys, welcome back. Today I am making my homemade cornbread dressing recipe. Well, we call it dressing in the South. Other people may call this cornbread stuffing. Either way, it's the same thing, and that's what I'm making today. I thought I'd bring you along and show you how I make this cornbread dressing recipe. This is my grandmother's recipe. It is delicious and so easy to make. And I will share with you the first thing that you're going to need to prep ahead of time is to already have your pan of cornbread cooked. If you do not have your own cornbread recipe, I will link my YouTube video on how to make homemade cornbread in the description below. I made a double batch of cornbread because I'm making a large amount of dressing this evening. As you can tell, we had to test taste it. You're going to need a large bowl. You're going to need, I have about 4 stalks of celery here. You're also going to need 2 eggs, a stick of softened butter, 2 jars of cream of chicken soup. You're going to need some chicken broth, 1 onion, salt, pepper, and sage. And you are also going to need some type of meat, either turkey or chicken. Today I'm using some of my canned chicken. I also have a YouTube video on how to can your own chicken. So I am using that. I'm just heating it up here really quick. So it's just, and I've already started to shred it up a little bit, but obviously if you had turkey, you could use that as well. Or you could use fresh chicken. You would just cook it and then shred it up. Any of those will work fine. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to take our cornbread and we are going to break it down into our large mixing bowl. I am just getting all the big pieces broken down here. I guess you could use like a food processor for this, but I like for mine to still be sort of chunky pieces of cornbread so that it doesn't just totally turn to mush when we mix all of this together later. So I'm just breaking it down really quick with my hands. And after that, the next thing that we are going to add to this is going to be our chicken or turkey, whichever one you have. We're just going to add that right on the top of it. I did leave the juice in that as well. That's fine as long as you don't have too much. We're going to salt. I'm using salt and pepper to taste. My guess would be you would be using a couple of teaspoons of each. Around here we just season with our heart. Then you are also going to add in 2 to 3 teaspoons of sage. This is some of my sage that I had dried at home. And so I'm adding, I think I added 4 teaspoons in here. But if it's very finely ground, you could probably get away with using less than that. But today, that's what I was using. I added 4 teaspoons of sage. I chopped up 1 onion finely. I'm going to add that in. I use white or yellow onions for this recipe. And then we are going to also finely chop our celery. Like I said, this is 4 stalks of celery. We're going to add that in. And then we are going to be adding in our eggs. We're just going to crack our eggs and add those in. If you're using farm fresh eggs, you may want to crack those into a separate bowl first. Make sure that they look okay and then add them to your dressing. After your eggs, we are going to add in our 2 cans of cream of chicken soup. We're just going to add those in on top. Dressing is one of my favorite parts of Thanksgiving meal. I could just eat the turkey dressing all by itself. This is definitely one of my most favorite side dishes at Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I actually make this every now and again. We make this and we make chicken and dumplings with it as well, and it's very, very tasty with that as well. It's also one of my favorite meals. It's chicken and dressing. Okay, now I started to melt my stick of butter there. It's not all the way melted, but it is very soft, somewhat melty. I added that in. Then I am pouring some chicken broth in. I am not using this entire container. I added in roughly 1 cup. And then what I like to do with the chicken broth is I like to add it in, mix everything up, and then if this still feels too dry, then I will slowly add in just a couple, just a little splash of chicken broth at a time to bring it up to where it is nice and moist. But I only used 1 cup approximately so far of that chicken broth. And now we are going to get in here with our hands and mix this all up. Once again, I'm sure you could use a mixer. I just get in here with my hands and mix it up. That way we don't work all that cornbread. I don't want it to be overly mixed. I don't want it to turn into just a big ball of total mush. I do want it to hold together though. So I'm just going to work through here and incorporate everything well with our hands. That's why I'm wearing gloves. Because this does get pretty sticky and messy. And this is looking like a great consistency to me. It is not too dry. It's all sticking together nicely. It's also not too wet, so I'm not going to add any more chicken broth to that. Next, I have a 9 by 13 pan. I am going to spray it with some cooking spray here. I'm going to preheat my oven at 425 as well. And then we are going to add this to our pan. And once again, just a reminder, when I made this, I did use what would be equivalent to 2 pans of cornbread. This does fill up this 9 by 13 pan very nicely. If you're going to be making a smaller portion of this, just using 1 pan of cornbread, you could use a slightly smaller pan to cook it in, or your cook time would just be a little less because the dressing would be thinner, so it wouldn't take as long to cook. I'm just going to kind of smooth it all out here so it cooks evenly. And we are going to put this in our oven that's at 425 for approximately 30 minutes. I would just keep checking on it, and whenever the top is light and brown and just slightly crispy, then you will know it is ready to eat. So here it is. This was exactly 30 minutes in. I took this out. You can tell it's just very lightly brown on top here. It's still nice and moist inside. This is one of my favorite parts of Thanksgiving meal is cornbread dressing. Hope you enjoy.